How y'all doing? As I sit here this morning, I'm looking outside at a beautiful blue sky and sunshine. It looks like a good day for a walk. In our gospel this weekend, that's what's going on. Two disciples are walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. And as people often do when they walk together, especially if it's going to be a long foot trip like theirs, they tell stories. Stories are what remains of our relationships, the relationships we've had. And they've had some relationship. They've had this relationship with this guy, Jesus Christ. They've seen some amazing things. They've had highs and lows. They've seen victory, they've seen defeat. And they're trying to make sense of it all. I think we tell our stories to try to make sense of our lives. And we like to share our stories with others to see what they think, to see if that sheds any light on how we fit and where we are in this world. Well, like any good companion, Jesus begins to tell his story. But his story is a little different. In his story, he's interpreting everything from the beginning of time, from creation down through all of the covenants. His story is the story of God's story, of God's love, of God's care, of God's relationships with his people. What's fascinating here is their hearts are burning, but they still don't recognize who is talking to them. You see, a risen Lord is just a little beyond their ability to believe. But they do believe. They believe in God's care for them. It says, right in the gospel, their hearts were burning. As Jesus talks about how God cares about each and every one of us. God cares about each and every one of our stories. Because our stories are about our relationships, about our lives. They invite him in. They say, look, it's getting dark. Let's have a meal. And in the breaking of the bread, in that ultimate sacrament of the Eucharist, they finally realize who the storyteller is. It's their friend. It's the risen Lord. It's the one they saw killed. It is true. The rumors are true. He is alive. His story connects every other story in the universe. God's story is our story. We share in God's story through our lives and through our relationships. It's important during this time. It's important any time, but especially during this time, that we tell our stories, that we tell and listen to other people's stories. Stories are the things that make our hearts burn, because they talk to us about who we really are and who God is. I hope during this time, and in the telling of your stories, that you truly have an Emmaus moment, that your hearts can begin to burn with the zeal that these disciples had, that your hearts are opened and you can see how your story fits to the story of the universe, the story that God intended from the very beginning of creation. Your story is important. Your story matters. Your story needs to be shared. And in that sharing, we need to understand how we're connected with God's story and the story of a resurrection Christ. See ya.